Welcome to Junk Monkey Live, place where resellers and treasure hunters and other storytellers come to hang out. How is everybody tonight? If you're watching this on replay, thank you. Appreciate you coming by. Where is everybody tonight? For the first time, I was able to get my second screen on mute before I started the show, so you don't get to hear me echo myself tonight. So tonight, I got one item I'm going to list for you. Hey, Ping, how are you? But I've got one really special item that I'm going to list live tonight. I've already got the draft made up, and we'll show you that here shortly. Hey, Christopher, how are you? But it's something I've been working on since November. And it's been a long, slow process that kept getting pushed to the side for various reasons. But I finally finished it. Hey, Christy, how are you? Awesome. I appreciate you coming in and watching tonight. Got a little something special for the channel. I'm going to go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. I have a very special watch. Some of you know that I am a watchmaker and an expert in all things watch related. I've made a living out of working on antique, vintage, and luxury watches for the past 35 years. And occasionally I buy them, fix them up, and resell them. And the one that I have tonight, well, it's something special. Hey, Tina, how are you? But yeah, that's what I do. That's what my regular job is. And until the shutdown started happening, it was very lucrative for me. And I just did eBay on the side a few times a year. And I would sell the watches that I would end up with for extra money, especially around Christmas time. Now I'm more or less, I am full-time eBay and Poshmark reseller, but I'm a part-time watchmaker. So I work 3 to 4 days a week, 4 to 5 hours at a time, working on watches. Yeah, the weather here has been weird. It's started snowing earlier today, and then it stopped. And then when I come out to the shop to turn the heat on to get ready for the show, it was starting to snow a little bit more. I haven't looked outside to see if it ramped up or not since it got dark. But yeah, winter's a little late getting here. So let's see how many people. We got 8 people in here already. On another note, this is not the watch that I've been talking about. This is a watch that I picked up yesterday. It was a really easy restoration and repair job on it. And what we have is an antique Elgin Railroad watch. This one is a B.W. Raymond model. And it's pretty nice old watch. One of my all-time favorites are the Elgins. Got a nice decorative gold-filled case. Show you the inside of it. Ping, is it cold down there too? Snow for LA. Lord, I'd hate to be driving around down there if it snowed. But one of the things that's always fascinated me about old watches is just how pretty they are on the inside. But yeah, this one, I just got it yesterday, picked it up. It was not running. It had a broken part in it that I was able to repair. And I put a new crystal on it, which is the glass see-through face on the front of a watch that's known as a crystal. So I picked it up for $40, did the repair. But if somebody brought this watch in to be repaired, I I would have charged somewhere in the $150 to $200 range to repair it for them. The part that was broken hasn't been available for many years, and I've been lucky enough to stockpile quite a few of them. Trees, knocked down tree. Dang. Weather sounds worse down there, Ping, than it does up here. It is currently 33 degrees, and we're under a winter storm advisory. But yeah, these old watches, I just love them. But anyway, I paid $40 for this one, did the repair, replaced the broken part, cleaned everything up, and I should be able to get somewhere in the $250 range for it when I list it. Yeah, I can see the Cajon Pass and up above Grapevine, yeah. I've been through there, that section of I-5 during wildfires, during mudslides, but I've never been through there with snow and freezing weather. I've seen snow on the beach in Texas. Dibs, where are you at? -9? That's cold. I don't care where you're at. Yeah. Wyoming, okay. Yeah, I got hung up in Wyoming a few years back. Can't remember. I think it was I-80 that goes across there. They shut the interstate down, and I was stuck on the west side of the state somewhere for about a week. So yeah, that weather can get bad up there. Luckily, we were able to get a hotel room because we were not the only ones stuck there. They shut the entire interstate down. 25, 80, and 90. Yeah, it must have been 80 that I was on. I was on the west side of the big pass that they shut down more often than any others. We lost a couple already. Back down to 6 people. All right, well, they'll just have to miss out on the big one. I got something special in this box right here. Yeah. Christy, I'll tell you how I handle those big jobs when I'm doing or for whatever reason I need to change almost all my listings. I will go into my seller hub, and then I will bring up every morning. I'll bring up the items that are ending that day. I will work off of that list. And if you do it that way, it takes a month to do it, but you do it in small bites instead of all at one time. I do it that way because when I just do one after another, I kind of lose my focus and get a little burnt out on it. And then I start making mistakes. And so if I do a few a day, every day, it gets me through things like that. For instance, in January, I ran a sale through the month of January. Anything that had been listed over a year, I put it at 30% markdown. And every morning, anything that was highlighted in red as being part of that sale, I would actually end that listing, go pull it, double check the listing, see if I want to put it back up or not, if I need to make any changes or not. And some of it I did. I did relist some of it. And the stuff that I relisted, a lot of it sold within a few days. But a lot more of it, I took one day and I loaded my truck down, and I took a literal truckload to the dump. Anyway, back to what's in the box. I get my 6x4 labels. Well, I used to. I don't think they have the program anymore, or they took this item off, but I get them from UPS for for free. And it's a monster box. I think there were 5,000 labels in there for free, and that's what I use. When I run out of those, I will try to get them from UPS again. If not, I just go on Amazon and order the Rolo branded ones. You can still get them. Oh, cool. So as long as they are going to give them away for free, I'm going to order them. If you want to know how to get those free labels from UPS, look up NC Picker Dave's channel, and he has a video on how to get those. You have to set up an account, and it's not just a regular UPS account. You have to get a vendor type account. It's a little different than just going in and signing up and getting a profile, so to speak. You have to set up an actual account. And once you do that, you can order a box of those for free. And they work. Anyway, get back to what's in the box. Yes, it is a Rolex. This is a vintage Rolex. And we're going to see if I can get camera in close enough to see what the dial reads. And I don't think it's going to work with me tonight. Yeah, there we go. You should be able to make that out. So what we have here is a vintage Rolex from the late 50s. And it was sold through Tiffany & Company. And Tiffany is one of the very few places that has a partnership with Rolex. And Rolex will put the Tiffany & Co. label on the dial. And they are quite possibly the most sought after watches in the watch collecting world are Tiffany branded watches. They are not easy to come by. Now, this particular one, if it didn't say Tiffany & Co. on the dial, would probably be about a $2,500 to $3,000 watch. This one with the Tiffany on it, I cannot find a record of one being sold ever. However, other Rolexes that had Tiffany dials on them, they were much more desirable models even without the Tiffany. And they're selling in the $25,000 to $30,000 range. So what I'm going to do tonight, is I'm going to put mine up for $11,111.11. Let me see if we can't get you a better look at that dial. There we go. Tiffany, it has two little scratches on the dial. Other than that, the rest of the watch is in fantastic condition. If you ever wondered what the inside of a vintage Rolex looks like, it looks like that. And yes, I had every single piece of that out of the watch. What you see here is some very old corrosion. That it is stainless steel, and stainless steel will corrode under the correct conditions, such as sweat getting into a very tight spot and setting there for many, many years, has salts and other things in it. So yes, stainless steel can rust or corrode. The true name for stainless steel is actually corrosion resistant steel, or CRESS for short. It's resistant, but it's not proof. Alrighty. Let's double check everything. Oh, and by the way, Rolexes do not have model numbers. They have model names, but their model numbers are known as reference numbers. And this one is a 6634. Very important thing when it comes to Rolexes. And any watch that you sell, here's a little tip for you. Always set the watch for 10, 10, 31, 32, thereabouts. Just get that second hand past the 6 o'clock marker. Now, if your watch has a date function on it, like at 3 o'clock or 6 o'clock, if it's at 3 o'clock, set the date for the 28th. If your date is at the 6 o'clock position, set the date for the 8th. Studies have been done on it, and it gives the watch the most pleasing look. And yeah, these watch companies have spent millions upon millions of dollars studying things like that. So If they spent that much money and come up with this and they say it works, I'm going to take their word for it, and I'm going to do the same thing they're doing. So we got good pictures. This is the reference number I was telling you about, 6634. It's on the 12 o'clock side between the lugs. More modern watches don't have it there. They have it in another place. And on the opposite side, on the 6 o'clock side of the watch, between the lugs, we have the serial number. With Rolex, here's a little secret that a lot of people will argue with you about, but you cannot date a Rolex by its serial number. Rolex issues their serial numbers in huge blocks, and sometimes those serial numbers don't get used for well over a decade. I have seen early 60s serial numbers, or I've seen watches with serial numbers, the serial numbers attributed to the 50s, but the watch was never released to the public until the 60s, that particular model. So you can't date a Rolex by its serial number. Try as they might tell you. We are in wristwatches. It is a Rolex 6634. Oyster Perpetual, mechanical automatic. Oh, the standard gold dial on a watch, that color, you don't call it gold, you call it champagne. Analog, yeah. Everything looks good. Got a decent little description on it. Now, normally on most things, regular run-of-the-mill reseller items, my title is my description. But for something like this, I know the kind of questions I'm going to get asked, such as the serial number, the diameter, so I go ahead and describe all of that. Price looks good. Now, I don't normally set a minimum offer, but when it comes to nice watches like this, within hours, you will be inundated with lowball offers. And you probably get a lot of questions too. People contacting you, trying to tell you your watch ain't worth that. I'll give you this. Don't listen to those people. They're trying to jump in really, really fast and snipe it, talk you into selling it to them cheap. Don't listen to those people. I also go ahead and set an auto accept price. All right, shipping is good. I'm going to send it out priority mail. Now, on this watch, it's the only one of its kind listed. Now, I normally promote at 5%. I recently changed that. But I now do promotions at 5%. But for when you have one-of-a-kind item, and it's something this nice and this expensive, you don't need to promote it at all. I'm still going to promote it just to be safe, but I'm going to do so at barely above the minimum at 2.1%. Default. You guys that promote, you need to double check your campaign because they're automatically filling in something other than default. And it's something that's very short windowed. So you're going to have to redo everything later on. No charity. All right. Boom. It is live. So let's go ahead and take that back down. Yeah, anything high end, you're going to have the keyboard Google University experts jump on it and try to tell you that you don't have what you say you have. And occasionally, rarely, one of them be right and they're actually trying to help you. But for God's sake, whatever you do, don't sell to those people. If you have to and you think they're right and they've got good information, just take the item down, do some more research. And if they are right, well, then you can relist it in a more correct fashion. How much do I have in this watch? Okay. This is the second most amount of money I've ever spent on a watch. It's also, I just listed it at a higher price than any other. It's the highest price listing I've ever put up. I bought the watch for $2,000 from the wife of the original owner, and he passed away a couple of years ago. And she was cleaning out a bunch of his stuff and found this watch. I also had to buy another watch for parts because parts for this watch have not been made. And what I had to buy is known as the bezel. The bezel is this little shiny part around the crystal. You can see it there. The old one, some repair person in the past had broken it and glued it back on. So I spent an additional large sum of money buying an empty case that's the same model, so just to get that one part. So I've got probably close to $3,000 in that watch. Yes, Brent, it does give it that look of a smile. Now there are other companies, they will set theirs at 250 or 150, but it's still the hands are at the top with the center sweep second at the bottom. Yes, all Rolex watches that you sell that sell for over $1,000 must go to the eBay verification center first. Here's the good thing about that. Once it makes it through eBay verification, not only do they verify that it's authentic, they will compare the actual watch to your listing and make sure that it matches your description and your pictures. If they find anything too far departing from that, they will shut the whole thing down, send you your watch back, and you don't get paid. You have to relist it more correctly. But if it does match, then it gets sent to the customer, and the customer can't return it. So and if they do try to return it for whatever reason, it must go to eBay verification again. And they keep the watch on record, and everything they noted about the watch is on that record. So if they try to send a different watch, you send them a Rolex, they can't send a Timex back and get their money. So it's one of the most protected things that you can sell on eBay is high-end luxury watches, specifically Rolexes. I think the old saying that I used to hear, Brett, was champagne taste and beer budget. That's how it went where I'm from. Oh, let me get back over here and pull up this. There we go. Well, I'm going to have to refresh that page. The lag is real. And of course, it comes back up. I don't care for champagne that much. If I'm at a New Year's Eve party and somebody hands me a glass of it, I'll drink it. But and I'm not even a beer person. I don't care for beer that much. Yeah, it's I kind of feel bad sometimes posting about these watches that I buy and sell as a reseller, but I was a watch seller on eBay for well over 20 years before I became a reseller. And I am uniquely situated to buy and sell those things. Not only to buy them, but to be able to refurbish them myself. And well, I kind of feel bad because not everybody is situated the same way that I am. However, I spent a lot of years learning my trade. And in fact, I was the quintessential half-starved watchmaker's apprentice. I lived in a low-income apartment in a very bad part of town, and I lived off of $5 pizzas and ramen noodles. So, 35 years later, I'm uh, I'm doing okay for myself, but it was not easy getting here. Precisely, Mark. A lot of people don't know that word. People who deal with watches, especially the antique and vintage watches and the history of watches. The correct terminology for us is a horologist. But I'm not only a horologist. I don't only study and collect. I'm also a watchmaker, trained. Mark Rich. Mark, have you been in here before? I'm terrible with names, so if you have, I'm sorry. But nice to meet you. Yes, I did pay my dues to learn my trade. Unfortunately, watchmakers don't really make a lot of money. We don't get paid a lot of money. For instance, a Rolex watch like that one, if somebody brought it into the store, now I charge a fair penny. What we call the trade price for the company that I have a repair shop set up inside their business. I charge $400 plus parts if needed to service a watch for them. Now they turn around and they charge the customer 1,200 plus parts, and they keystone or double the price of the parts. So, and that's not standard either. If I was actually employed at a watch repair shop or a jewelry shop, they would put me on a salary or an hourly wage, and the customer would still get charged $1,000 to $1,200 to have a Rolex refurbished the way I do it, but I would not see very much of that money at all. Currently, I am an independent contractor, and I work at a watch and clock repair shop. All right, Christy, I thank you for coming in. You sleep tight. So, being an independent contractor is not all it's cracked up to be either. You have to have all your own tools, equipment, parts, everything, and it takes years to build up a collection of tools and parts. And not only that, but you have to develop relationships with parts houses and companies, watch companies, and get on their list to be able to buy parts. And that is becoming very problematic. Truthfully, Rolex no longer supplies spare parts to anybody. The Rolex dealership where I came up, they shut their spare parts program and repair program down because of how restrictive Rolex became. And they're not the only ones. One of the biggest watch manufacturers in the world is called ETA, and they are owned, or actually, it's the company is called Swatch, and they own a huge number of companies that make parts and movements. ETA being one of them, and they own Omega, and they have made it very difficult to get parts. And we can still get parts made by ETA and Omega and things, but instead of me being able to contact Omega directly anymore, I have to go through the parts house. And a part that used to cost me $12 or $15 is now costing me $50 or $60, and I have to wait 6 to 8 months sometimes to get that part. So yeah, the being a watchmaker anymore is becoming more and more difficult, which is why I'm very glad that I have the 35-year collection of parts and pieces, new, old stock, used, you name it, I've got them, and the relationships that I've developed over those years, where other people like me may have something in stock or can still get something, and we help one another out a little bit here and there. And this year, I am still planning on retiring from working on watches for the public come October. I'm going to move the rest of my shop here, where most of it's here anyway, between here and my storage unit. And I am going to start sourcing more watches and just repairing them here on at the house and reselling them. And I will still do the occasional Rolex watch or other luxury watch for some of the businesses that I've developed relationships with through the years. But all the quartz watches and crystals and crowns and little minor repairs on cheap watches, I'm no longer going to do that. There's really not enough money in it for me. Actually, that's a lot, Brett. I am the only trained watchmaker. There's one other guy. He works right next door to me in the same shop. He was trained in the military, and he's good at what he does. He doesn't do what I do. But other than that, I am the only trained luxury brand watchmaker within several hundred miles. There's nobody to the east of me, nobody to the west of me. The closest person north of me used to be in Eugene, but that person is gone. I know there used to be somebody in Portland, but I'm not sure that person is around anymore. So the next person to the south of me is the Bay Area. So, but even being that exclusive in my area, the kind of people who have Rolexes and high-end Omegas and other high-end watches, they're all retirees and they're living on fixed incomes. And this is a major retirement area for people from California. They come up here because the cost of living is so much better than where they're from. But they still don't like to spend the money to have their watches serviced, much less repaired. And that's a con, but the pro is sometimes I'm able to buy those watches from them. Hey, Variety Flippers here, Land Shark Pickers here. Welcome, guys. You guys are going to have to go watch the playback because you missed something pretty good. And I'll show you a little tease, but you're going to have to go back and watch it. That's all you get. I need to get them watch hours up. I'd like to see this channel. It's one of my other goals other than retirement this year is I'd like to see my YouTube channel get monetized. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to learn how to edit again. Every time I've tried to learn how to edit, I end up very frustrated. So hopefully this year I can power through that and I can learn to edit because I have a growing list of pre-recorded videos that I want to do for you guys. And I need to apologize to everybody. Last week I was extremely ill and was not able to do the live show. And dadgummit, I had a special guest lined up for last week too, and I haven't been able to touch base with that person since then to try to reschedule. So hopefully here in the near future, we'll have some more guests on. It's been a little while since we had one. The last one was an old mining friend of mine, and I didn't know it until we started the show, but he was extremely camera shy. He's usually fairly chatty. And the instant I hit go live, he shut down on me. Specialized in cuckoo clocks. He was one of those people who enjoys pain. He's a masochist. Well, I don't remember which one it is, a masochist or a sadist, but if he enjoyed working on cuckoo clocks, something wasn't quite right with him. I actually had a woman call me one time when I still worked at the Rolex place and asked me if I worked on cuckoo clocks. And I said, ma'am, I would rather take a whooping with barbed wire than work on a cuckoo clock. She said, I'll be right there and I'm bringing my whip. I told her, I said, well, I won't be here when you get here. The shop that I work at, we do work on cuckoo clocks. And we own a lot of them, and we rarely ever have time to work on anything that the business owns. And we've probably got several hundred cuckoo clocks, and every once in a while we'll get a chance and we'll clean one up, put it on the wall, or 3 or 4 of them, and they sell very fast. Brett, that was a true story. not just a funny. And I meant it too. I hung the phone up, I clocked out and went home. I don't know if she ever actually showed up, but I was not going to work on her cuckoo clock. Now, watchmakers and clockmakers are rarely ever the same person. It's two entirely different fields of work. We both work on machines that tell time, but the practice of working on clocks is totally different than the practice of working on a watch. There are things that clockmakers do that make watchmakers cringe. Yeah, and quite honestly, the only reason to ever work on a cuckoo clock is because it is sentimental. They are not very high quality. Even the rare and expensive ones are not built with any high degree of quality. They are novelty items, to be honest. And some of them are fairly nice. Some of them I like. But when you compare just about any cuckoo clock that's ever been made to I don't know, a Chelsea ship's clock or a Gustav Becker Mental clock, the difference in the quality is very apparent. Portland, Eugene at local level. Eugene is probably 3 hours north of me, and Portland is probably 5.5 hours north of me. I know both places had Rolex watchmakers at one point, but there was a lot of things that happened a couple of years ago. So I'm not sure. The guy in Eugene, I think, just retired. The guy in Portland, I don't know. I lost. I have not heard anything since the trouble they had up there. So as far as I know, the next nearest person to me that is trained like I am is in the Bay Area south of me, which is probably an eight hour, yeah, probably 8 hours south of me. If there are any other watchmakers closer than that, I've never heard of them. I'm actually in Southern Oregon. I'm in Medford, Oregon. I'm right on the I-5, just above the California border, probably 30 miles north of the California border. No, I'm not that far. I'm on the southern end of Oregon. I specifically moved here about 11 or 12 years ago to work for a luxury jewelry company. Unbeknownst to me, that company, I knew the company. I'd been in their store before, many years before that. They were a Hearts on Fire uh, jeweler, which 12, 15 years ago, that was a big deal. Since then, Hearts on Fire sold out. But anyway, this particular jewelry company had actually been sold. The man who owned it sold it to his father, or his father just took it over. And his father was, he's an old wheeler dealer. He wasn't a high end luxury jeweler like his sons are. He's since retired. But anyway, he took the business over because the business was locked into a lease. None of this was known to me. Once that lease ran out, instead of making a new lease and keeping the store open, he shut it down. And I was left to fend for myself. And since then, I have been a independent contractor, and I probably will never go back to work for another luxury jewelry store. Ah, cool. Josephine Creek. That would be gold mining at Josephine Creek. Mark, I don't know if you may be one of my older subscribers from back when I did mining videos, or a few of them. And yeah, I've been a gemstone miner my entire life. Marie, give me just a second to stick my head out the door and I'll check. Yeah, I know it snowed here earlier and then quit. And then when I came out to the shop, it was dusting a little bit. But let me check. No, it is actually not snowing at the moment. At the moment, I have clear skies directly above me, but to the north of me, I could still see a lot of clouds. I can't really see to the west or the south where my snow clouds normally come from. But I'm sure I'll get some before the night's over. Yeah, Mark, I've mined here in Oregon for a lot of years. I have mined gold out of the Rogue River. I've mined fire opals out of Lake County, and I've mined sunstones out in Plush. I actually worked for the mines, not just going out there and for day trips or anything, but I've actually worked for the mines. I've mined tourmaline. I've mined aquamarine, kunzite. Um, let's see, what else have I mined? Agates and jaspers and petrified wood for any number of years. Precious opal down in California in the early 70s. Yeah, we've been under a winter storm warning here too. Actually, I don't see the icon on my computer anymore. It's saying it's 33 degrees and cloudy. But I just stuck my head out the door and it's actually clear skies. Madras. Oh, yeah. Richardson's Ranch. Oh, Lord, what is his name? I've been meaning to make it out to Richardson's Ranch. I've been to oh, shoot, the other Thunder Egg place out there when Cop still had it. Yeah, there's some good rock hounding out there, Mark. In fact, Richardson's Ranch was on an old TV show that the Travel Channel had years ago. Um, I think it was called Treasures of the Earth or something like that. And they were on for their Thunder Eggs. And that TV show was scheduled to come down to Texas and film a show on petrified wood with me. And then they canceled with me, and come to find out they did their petrified wood segment with Richardson's Ranch. Well, I hope so, Variety Flipper. I could use another one myself. I've only had a couple today. Let's see. Check in on eBay and see how it's doing right this minute. Where is my eBay? There it is. Well, I can send a couple of offers out. I've made $81 today. I've had 2 sales. Let's send a couple of offers out. Cool. And let's check in on the Rolex. See how many views we've had since we put it up. 4 views. No watchers. Well, it is kind of late in the day to start one, but yeah. Large aqua. I have a large aqua that I mined several years ago. Now it's not facet grade, but it is a large terminated crystal. Picked it up down in San Diego. Mark, I can lay claim to the largest terminated crystal of Oregon sunstone ever found. It's in the Crystal Bridges Museum down in Arkansas. It was a 320 carat uh, large twin crystal with a pale red center with Schiller. I actually have right here in this room somewhere the next world record if I ever decide to break it. I have an 1100 and something carat fully formed crystal of a different crystal habit. And that one I got when I was working at the man, I'm just drawing blanks on these mine names. Anyway, it's the only sunstone mine outside of Plush. It's up north near Bend in the Ochakos. Is my audio choppy? Might be my internet connection. Somebody else let me know what I sound like. Mark, hang on just a second. I got a picture I want to show you of the kind of petrified wood we get down in Texas. Right here. Yes. Now, this picture I'm about to show you is only about a 10 or 12 foot section of a 60 foot long log. It'll look like it's shorter than that because there's a short section missing that's filled in with dirt. We dug this thing out of the side of a hill way back in the woods, and there are 2 or 3 small homemade wooden bridges going across creeks, so we can't get heavy equipment back in there. But that's me, I don't know, 15, 16 years ago. There's more pictures of the entire log. This is just the only one that I can grab on short notice. I used to have them on my computer, but that was a few computers back. All right. Went out. No, it's okay. Okay. So it was on your end, not on my end. Yeah. Fire opal. Mark, I actually I didn't discover the pink opal, and we've always known it was there, but I was the one who found the lode that was mineable. Quite by accident. The mining partner I had at the time, he and I were out there. I was camping, just going to poke around a little bit. And he climbed up the top of the mountain, the pink opal area there. And me, like an idiot, I followed him up there. And it's not a spot that should have ever been climbed. Well, when we get to the top, I turn around and look at what I just climbed up. And I'm like, I'm not climbing back down that. I don't want to die today. And there's a little dim road at the top of the mountain going back down the back side of the mountain. I'm like, where does that go? He said, well, it goes back down and around, but it's a long walk. I said, fine, I'm walking. I'm not climbing back down that. So off we go down this little trail. Got my collecting bucket and my little S2E6 hammer in my hand. And I noticed a piece of gray rock in the middle of this old dim road. And the opal there, the pink opal, when it's been exposed to sunlight for a number of years, will actually turn a bluish gray. So I kick it over, and it is a fist-sized chunk of pink opal. So we set our buckets down, and I started looking around, and I found a big tailings pile just full of massive pink opal. And that's how the big pink opal discovery over the last 7 or 8 years came about, is because I kicked a rock in the road. I actually have a carving. I sent a huge chunk of the pink opal overseas and had it carved. And it's a tree stump, 5 rabbits, a bunch of little mushrooms. And it, if I remember right, it's somewhere in the 4,000 carat range. Huh. It could have been on my end, Marie. Weather being what it is and as far away from my router as I'm at on my Wi-Fi. But yeah, the pink opal, I probably have a chunk of the pink opal sitting right here. Always a little bit of show and tell. Piece here. Yeah. But yeah, there's a chunk of pink opal. I've also mined smoky and amethyst down in Hallelujah Junction, and there's a chunk right there. One of these days I'll get it cut, or I'll cut it myself. Huh. Most sunstone is a feldspar, and the schiller part of it, and in fact, what colors all sunstone, Oregon sunstone, is copper. I've never run across a piece with gold in it, although there are some very, very few pieces found, both in the Achaco deposit and the Plush deposit, that have a silver schiller in it. And to this day, I've never learned what the silver schiller is. It may just be a finer copper. Okay. And for you folks wondering about the opal, why it's pink and not all rainbow colors, uh, opal is one of the more fascinating gemstones out there. It comes in a lot of forms. The opal that you see with all the flashes of rainbow colors in it is known as precious opal. But that's just a type of opal or a variety of opal. Opal runs a big gamut. Now, fire opal, you would think, has fire in it. However, that is a big misnomer. Fire opal is named after the color of fire, from yellow to orange to red, with the red being the most sought after and the most expensive and the most rare. Yeah, Mark, the pink opal that is in the Crater Rock Museum is probably a piece that I mined. Me and my mining partner at the time, I think we donated a bucket to him. The last I knew, Outlaw Rocks is the mining company that now owns the claims up there for the pink opal. They also have a blue opal claim, and they also have the fire opal claim, the old Juniper Ridge mine. Here's a piece of precious opal. I don't know if it's gonna. It's You can see just a little bit of the green color in it right there. I'll flash it around just right. That needs to be cut and polished in order to bring those colors out. And there's the large aquamarine crystal I was telling you. I mined this one down in California. A friend of mine down there owns one of the tourmaline mines. All right. That's pretty cool. Heart Mountain Jasper is getting very difficult to come by. And Heart Mountain, if memory serves, they have some pretty nice opals out there too. That are water clear and sometimes have a little bit of play of color in them. Most of the ones I've seen, the color was attributed to fracture fire rather than the actual play of color, opal play of color. Let me see what else I can lay my hands on. I can't get in there too easy, but we will see. All right. I have my faceting machine stored in there. There we go. Just a few little gemstones. That is a blood red sunstone that I mined that I have to get cut. There's another one that a friend of mine cut for me. Here's one of the fire opals we were talking about. All right, now this is cool. Some sunstones are actually dichroic. That means they change color. If you view them at one angle, they're red. And if you change your view by 90 degrees, they can turn green. So we look right here and we got a blue-green or a teal color. And we roll it. Actually, there it is, this red, green, red, green. So that's kind of cool. It makes it nearly impossible to facet because the colors will blend and it'll go like a bronzy brown. And here's a smoky quartz that I mined and cut. And a modified Portuguese. What else I got in my little bag of goodies here? There's an amethyst that I cut. If you're wondering why it's blue, it's because it's what's known as Siberian amethyst, which is a very difficult, it is a true Siberian. It's blue with flashes of purple instead of purple with flashes of blue. There's a lot of amethysts in the world these days that they call Siberian, but it's not from Siberia, and it's the exact opposite of Siberian amethyst. Siberian amethyst is blue with purple flash, whereas everything that people today call Siberian amethyst is purple with blue flashes. That was a mouthful. There's a black opal that I cut. And I also do a little flint knapping. Wow, folks, y'all can tell I really like my rocks. I got completely sidetracked from reselling. No, it's blue. Let me pull it back out. Normally I have gemstone tweezers that I would hold a faceted stone in. But yeah, that's blue. And if you hold it just right, it'll flash to purple. Now I'm having you see the little, yep, there we go. Let's see. These camera angles just mess me up. So yeah, you get a lot of purple flash in it. Yeah, Mark, the red opal, I've only ever seen one spot in the world that produced red fire opal. Cherry red fire opal. Not the Mexican precious opal or jelly opal. That stuff is completely, it as it dries, it fractures. Now, there was another spot near there that had cherry red fire opal, and it was not stable either. There was one called the Heart of the Dragon, big, massive thing. This thing's bigger than a softball, but not quite as big as a cantaloupe. And the Heart of the Dragon, as it dried, as it comes out of the opal, when it comes out of the ground, has a tremendous amount of moisture in it. Any opal that forms in a volcanic host rock has even more moisture in it than, say, precious opal out of Australia. Hey, Roman, how are you? So when you pull it out of the ground, it starts to dry. It starts to give off that moisture. And as it does so, it will start to change color. It'll haze up, get foggy, and it'll crack. And the Mexican cherry opal was extremely bad about that. Less than 2% of the red opals that ever came out of the ground down there stabilized and didn't. And in truth, all fire opal is like that. Very, very little of it survives coming out of the ground. It's nothing. I've seen 400 and 500, 600 pound boulders of fire opal come out of the ground, and it it just doesn't survive. So now opal, on the other hand, that comes out of sedimentary rock like sandstone or limestone, is more likely to be stable. Yeah, and it's very, very true that uh, the polarized sunglasses were brought about because of rocks. Now, that particular thing is called plagiarism, which is a little different than dichroism. Yes, I do facet, but I do not facet for the public. I only facet my own rough. And here's why, ladies and gentlemen, when you cut a gemstone, when you facet a gemstone, you're not actually cutting thin slivers off. You're grinding. So you grind it to shape. And then you grind all the facets in, and then you go to finer and finer grits, and then you start pre-polishing, and then you polishing. So all the rock that gets cut away or ground away actually ends up as a very fine powder, mud, really, because you're doing this whole process wet. And the finished stone, the weight of it compared to the weight of the rough gemstone is what you call the yield. You may think of it in reselling terms as cost of good versus return on investment. However, instead of the number getting bigger, it gets smaller because you're cutting and grinding it away. A very, very high yield, a very good blocky piece of well-shaped, flawless gemstone rough will yield on a good day 20%. So you start with a 100 carat piece of rough, you end up with a 20 carat finished gemstone. However, the vast majority of rough gemstones are not blocky, flawless, or well shaped. They're very challenging in their shapes. They have cracks and other flaws in them that you have to cut away to get to the good part of it. So the reality is anywhere from 5 to 15% is what you can get on a yield on a cut stone from the rough. So it's unbelievably weird how people find, you go out for a day trip to the Sunstone area and you find a 25 carat piece of rough and you think it'll cut a 20, and the miners out there tell you, oh yeah, you get 50% yield out of that. Not possible. Or it's not impossible, but it's extremely improbable. Mark, if you bought $200 worth of Mexican opal in a jar, let me tell you how they do that. They take those empty olive jars, tall, narrow jar, and they put a hollow tube down in the center of it, such as the center of a paper towel roll. And they will fill the center of the jar full of just dead host rock. Then they'll put the stuff with color around the outside edges of it and then slowly pull that tube out. So I hope that's not the case, but that is the standard practice for those jars. So hopefully that's not what happened to you. And the Mexican fire opal and the Mexican jelly opal and the Mexican precious opal, whatever they're calling it these days, is also highly unstable. It just doesn't cut well. It's very beautiful in those jars, though. Now it's when you go to the big shows in Tucson, Arizona, Quartzsite, Arizona. There's a big show every year in Denver and a couple others, but those are the big shows that the most miners go to. All the other shows will more often than not just be resellers. But when you go to those shows and you're looking at those jars of opal, before you commit to buy, ask if you can dump the jar out. 99 times out of 100, they'll tell you no. And a lot of times they'll tell you that's what they did because it's a specimen jar, not a rough gemstone jar. so to speak. It's not a parcel of gemstones to be cut. Dust Devil Mine. Don Buford, old friend of mine, very old friend of mine, and I met him and Terry many years ago, probably 20 years ago or so. In fact, the very first gemstone I ever cut, or ever faceted, not cut, but faceted, came out of their mine. And it's dichroic. You'll hear a lot of people say diacrylic, but diacrylic is actually a type of man-made glass. It's not a gemstone. I need to get out there this year and visit with Don. In fact, I have the original sign for the Dust Devil Mine hanging right over there on the wall on the other side of this thing that you can't see it from here. Clearwater Smoky quartz, 3,000 carats. Yeah. Near lavender. So, yeah. Quartz is great for cutting gemstones. Fascinating. Crystalline quartz. Mark, who did you talk to out there at Dust Devil? Roman, I've had 2 sales today. Between the 2 sales, it totaled up to $81. So over the weekend, I had like a dozen sales, but it was a 4-day weekend. So even my weekend sales were not great. Brent, I am actually a metallurgist. But I think you may be talking about precious metals like gold and silver, platinum. Yeah. Yeah, you're doing better than me, Roman. Let's see. I've got 2 things going out of here in the morning. I may have had 3 sales. Yeah, I did have 3 sales today. I had one came in early this morning before I left, so I went ahead and shipped it. And I've had 2 since then. I sold part of a DeWalt radial arm saw for $35, and then I sold a VHS for $4, and I sold a set of leggings this morning early for $20 or thereabouts. Yeah, in fact, mine and my wife's wedding bands are made out of gold that I mined myself right here in Oregon. Part of the gold is. The rest of the gold was from heirloom jewelry from my family and also from my workbenches. I'm actually a full-time bench, or used to be a full-time bench jeweler. Made custom jewelry and set diamonds. Anything in the watch and jewelry world, I've pretty much done it. Everything from digging raw materials out of the ground to finished product. And that's been my job. I'm not just a watchmaker. That was my primary job over the last 35 years, but I've also a full-time or a fully trained and working bench jeweler. Size rings, do repairs, set diamonds, cut gemstones. I worked for a company that made gold nugget jewelry out of the Alaskan placer gold nuggets. I did opal inlays for the same company. It's Nagal and Goldcraft West, jewelry company here in jewelry manufacturing company that the jewelry store that I worked for owned. The Rolex dealership that I worked for 13 years, they had a side business where they did fundraisers at hospitals. And I would go and we would set up a complete jewelry store, freestanding lit glass cases. We'd take a couple of $1 million worth of inventory with us. And I would bring a full jeweler's bench with me, and I would do sizings and repairs right there on the spot. We did a show in St. Louis at the big hospital there, Barnes Jewish, and in 4 days' time, we sold $177,000 worth of jewelry, and I did all the sizings right there on spot for them, so they didn't have to wait. So the average sale price of a ring was probably $300 to $500, and I probably sized close to 1,000 rings in 4 days. So that was, my poor fingers were worked to the bone. And that's on top of all the free repairs I did for people who would bring their stuff in from home, like broken chains. I'd solder those back together. Speaking of mining, one of the owners of some of the mines that I've worked for, and a friend of mine there, just got something in my email from them. I have to touch base with them in the morning. Yeah. Well, he probably was a little tired and just wasn't, pronunciation probably got away from him. Yeah. Uh, I I did a lot of custom jewelry for people, even on spot at these jewelry shows that we would do, these fundraisers at hospitals, and we did them coast to coast and border to border. And towards the end there, before I left that company, we were actually on the road 9 months out of the year. So it took up a major part of my life. And it just got to the point where the shows were not that great anymore. The travel was not that great anymore. A lot of the big shows we lost. And it was, in fact, it was how I found this place here in Oregon. And it was part of my contract. Even after I left the company, I would fly back down to Texas and go out on the road with them. And part of my contract was that I got 2 days off here in Oregon so I could go mining when we were here. And then the company started losing these shows. The shows were just going away. The hospitals were doing different things for fundraising rather than having people like us come in and sell stuff and then give them a cut of the money. So that part of the company kind of went away, and I didn't go out with them anymore. But I really missed the mining. So packed the family up and we moved to Oregon. But custom work for other people is very, very difficult to do. Um, it just is. I used to do custom casting for people, and it got to the point where before I would cast it in gold, I would cast it in silver, and then I would gold plate it and show it to them, and they would love it. And then I would cast it in gold, and they'd come to pick it up, and I'd want to get paid, and they're like, "Well, I want to change this, that, and the other," and I just to make the mold and pour the metal is hundreds of dollars spent, and it got to the point where people would back out after you've already spent all this money making this thing for them, and then after the fact they'd want to change stuff, and they didn't understand that, hey, I got to get paid for what I've done already before we do anything else. So it became too frustrating. So I stopped doing custom work for other people. I still like to make my own custom work and then sell it, but Mark, I don't know what to tell you. Um, in order to assay something, you have to actually melt it down. And there's chemical assay and fire assay. Either way, you destroy the piece and you purify it, and then you test it to see what it is. And so I don't. There are testers out there. There's a little pen type called a key tester. Then there's X-ray fluorescence, or XRF, If you can find somebody that has an XRF machine, they can put it on there and hit a button. It'll tell you, it'll give you a breakdown of the percentages of the different elemental metals that are in it. I do not have access to such a machine. Oh no, yeah, lab created stones. They have their place, but it's always better to spend the money. The trouble is, a lot of times, genuine colored gemstone of any quality that is cut correctly is extremely difficult to source, and it's extremely expensive. Yeah, you can get on eBay and you can buy 5 millimeter round cut emeralds all day long for pennies on the dollar, but they're crap. To find a true AAA diamond cut round emerald is thousands of dollars if you can even find one. Yeah, it's a lot of work, and it's not cheap. Everything we do in the jewelry world and watchmaking world, everything is expensive. For instance, when I work on these watches, to a Rolex has about 5 different grades of lubrication in it, anywhere from an extremely fine synthetic oil all the way up to 2 or 3 different types of grease. The fine oil, the escapement oil, a 10 milliliter bottle of it, a tiny little 10 milliliter bottle of it, cost me about $75. Um, everything we do, every tool we use, every piece of equipment we use, every chemical we use, it's all extremely expensive. Yep. Yeah, a lot of jewelers will try to go that route because we need to get paid. We've got bills, and our landlords and our electric companies and everything, they don't understand that we can't get paid for another 6 weeks because that's how long it's going to take us to finish a piece, because we have to source something from Brazil or Germany, and it's going to be another 6 weeks before it gets here, and then we got to get it approved, and then we got to do all the work before we get paid. We don't get a regular paycheck. So being a custom jeweler is tough. The same with being a watchmaker. I don't get paid until the watch is finished, completed, and tested, and then give it to the customer. Then the customer pays, and then I get paid. So, if I'm waiting 6 to 8 weeks to get a part in, that's 6 to 8 weeks that I'm not getting paid for the work I've already done. So a lot of times jewelers would rather, they try to talk you into going the easy, cheap route, specifically because they need to get paid. Trust me, if we could get genuine gemstones of quality more easily, every one of us would rather work with genuine gemstones. But I agree, I would much rather have a gemstone from the ground than lab created. For me, lab created, I don't care about the chemical signature of it. As far as I'm concerned, it's just a piece of colored glass. Yeah, Roman, and watches are at one and the same time extremely simple, but unbelievably complicated. Uh, there are only 5 wheels in a watch, and if even one of them has the tiniest flaw, the watch won't run correctly. And sometimes tracking down that flaw will drive you crazy. So, the construction of the watch itself is fairly simple in most cases. But it's the end results. It's very complicated to get from step A to finished product. Spectrograph. No, I don't think a spectrograph will help you. That has more to do with light. In order to identify a piece of metal, you need an X-ray fluorescence or an XRF reading. Hamsters. Matt, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, hamsters on a wheel. Okay, I got it. Took a second. Hey, Paul, how are you? Yeah, Paul, I call that my Rolex tool. Seriously, one of these days, I'm going to get me a big sledgehammer and paint that damn thing green and call it my Rolex tool and hang it over my watch bench. It is. It's very fascinating. Paul, you would show up down towards the end. I got a message half an hour ago that my dinner was ready. Paul once sent people out to find me so I could get online and help him identify a watch. Turned out it was a fake counterfeit Seiko. So he's kind of got a sour taste for watches. Paul, how's the weather down there in Florida? It's freaking snowing and cold up here. All right, Mark, nice talking to you, man. Stop by anytime. Mark, in case you didn't know it, you can find me on Instagram under the same handle, Junk Monkey. It's got the same picture of the monkey with sunglasses. Always happy to talk to a fellow rockhound. Staking bench or staking kit? And I wish you'd have told me you had a staking kit. I'm always on the lookout for them. I've probably owned 6 sets, but always room for one more. 80 and sunny. Yeah, you are miserable, aren't you? How much did you get for your staking kit, and what was the manufacturer of it? K&D or oh shoot, Marshall, and a couple other different companies made them. Oh, you had a glass top one? You dog. If I'd have known that, I'd have bought it from you. I've been wanting one of those glass topped. It had the domed glass top over it. Had the little staking anvil in the middle and a whole bunch of little stakes and punches. You dog. You should have told me that. And wherever you got it, go back and ask if they got anything else. I got plenty of non-working watches. Hey, Cheryl, how are you? $10. How much did you get for it? Depending on the condition, that's anywhere from $200 to $500 set, and the size of it. Some of them are pretty small. They've got the stake, a small staking anvil and 20 or 30 punches. Some of them are rather large, have a full size anvil, and they'll have maybe 100 punches with it. See, I wonder if I've got one of my staking kits here. Normally they come in a wooden box. Oh. One thing about being a watchmaker, we got some really cool tools. This is one of my staking sets. I have to be careful here. But here we go. So this is called the anvil. And you have a series of stumps, which are little pieces that fit in the holes on the anvil. And you got the punches or the actual stakes. that go down into the anvil and perfectly align one top to bottom. And we use these for doing all kind of repairs on watches, replacing broken balance staves, which is an axle, putting wheels on axles, making holes smaller, making holes bigger, installing jewels, which are bearings. But it's an essential part of my livelihood is this box of tools. Had like 30 punches with it. Yeah, so that's one of the smaller sets, Paul. And it's probably, I hope you got about $200 for it. That set that I just showed you is actually one of my small sets. My big set that I work out of at my regular shop is probably 3 times the size of the one I just showed you. Or garnets, and they're not always fake. Sometimes they're real. The Montana sapphire industry was geared almost exclusively to the watchmaking world. But yeah, we use diamonds, rubies, sapphires, garnets for jewels and watches. Yep, $250 and sold them $30. Yeah, that's you got a good price for it, and yeah, they do sell because guys like me look for those. I'm always a day late or $1 short when it comes to those things. Well, Cheryl, if worst comes to worst, send it to me. The battery, if it doesn't have a strap across the top of it, should just pop out. But really and truly, you should take it into a jeweler and have them do it. It's not that expensive. I don't doubt it, Paul. You got all those metal bits and pieces inside a glass dome. Hopefully it makes it there intact. Ooh, a smartwatch? I'm surprised that it has a battery in it at all. It should have a capacitor in it. Well, hello, Denise. Awesome, Paul. That's cool, Cheryl. I did not know that. Paul, next time you run up on watch parts and tools and equipment, I'm going to be upset with you if you don't contact me. At the very least, I can tell you what you got, probably better than Sold Comps will. Cheryl, have you ever had to replace the battery in one of these? See the little tuning fork symbol at the bottom? Ooh, C-clamp, yeah. Now, don't be contacting me when you find a bunch of Guess watches and Timex watches and junk like that, but you come across tools or old stuff like pocket watches, old Elgin pocket watches and things like that, man, hit me up. If nothing else, I can tell you whether or not you're wasting your money, or I tell you to get it, help you price it. Probably, Cheryl. They are very easy to break. Omega. Yeah. No, it's actually Bulova Accutron. But Omega did make an Accutron. Well, they didn't make it. They made a tuning fork watch, but they bought their movements from Bulova. Yeah, no Kenneth Coles. And it's certainly no Invictus. Folks, let me go ahead and help you all out right now. When you're out there in the wild and you run up on an Invicta watch, run. Do not buy and sell Invicta watches. Trust me on this. Yeah, people buy and sell them on eBay all the time, but they are junk, and you're going to end up regretting buying and selling Invicta watches. They're big, funky things. They're not built with any kind of quality. They fall apart faster than you can put one back together. Invicta watches, I will not even change a battery in one, and I am a very experienced watchmaker. They hand them to me, I hand them right back and tell them, sorry, take it to the mall. I'm sorry, Cheryl. Yeah, they're very cool to look at. And if you can buy them cheap and you want to wear one just because it's cool, that's fine. But they are not watches that you can work on. Yeah, those big, chunky, fancy looking cases, they're great. But the Invicta is so tied to industry and pumping out new models that they do not stock or backstock parts to work on them. Paul, you're not sponsored by Invicta. Promise you. Yes, batteries in them do die fast, especially the chronograph models. The biggest reason chronographs fail is because people don't know how to use them. If the big second hand on your chronograph is running, you're killing your watch. 9 times out of 10, the center sweep second hand is not actually your second hand. Your second hand will actually be either at the 6 o'clock position or the 9 o'clock position and be a little small subdial. The big center sweep second hand is actually your stopwatch hand, and it is only meant to run for short periods of time to use like a stopwatch. Hummingbird, yeah. Yeah, they want you to buy a new watch. And I don't know if what they have has got high enough quality to be called planned obsolescence, rather than it's just cheap junk that falls apart fairly quickly. All right, folks, if anybody else has got any watch related questions, now's the time to ask, because my stomach is telling me it's time to go eat. Paul, you need to get you one of them Wawa sponsors. Oh, by the way, Paul, you're going to want to go back and watch the replay on this episode, because there's something special towards the beginning of the show. Paul, it's only 8 o'clock where I'm at. What are you doing still awake? Cheryl, that would have been a dress size watch. And let me see, I got one. I'll show you what size watches they are. That chain that you sent me pictures of would have went to or been perfect for a 10 size or a 12 size dress watch. It would not have been suitable for a big 16 size railroad watch, but it would have been perfect for a little 12 size dress watch. That's a couple of little Walthams that I have laying around. Or more likely, it would have been great for a Hamilton. Something about this size. This one, the Hamilton, is a 10 size, and the little Walthams that I just showed you are 12 size. How long is that chain? Because it's probably what's known as a vest chain, if it's that short. It could also easily be used on what's called an aught size, which is this watch, which is about the size of a $50 up to not quite as big as a silver dollar. I know, Marie, but the dinner wasn't ready yet, and the show was 9-inch chain. Yeah, that would have been for a vest, and there would have been a little loop right next to a small pocket. Now, a chain for a watch that went in your pocket is normally 12 to 13 inches. But in the late 1800s, all the way up till the early 20s, they also had a long chain that went across the vest from one side all the way to the other, and it would have had a spot in the middle for a tie tack. So you would have had the double chain hanging across your vest. One, two, three, four, five, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I got like 12 watches right here on my desk that I need to do something with. Yeah. Yeah, Cheryl, that's just it's a Art Deco dress watch chain or dress pocket watch chain. And the big loop that you're talking about is not the part that attached to the watch. It's no, wait a minute. Yours has the little clip looking thing on the other end for clipping to the vest. Most pocket watch swivels or chain swivels. Here I go again, running across the shop to the watch bench. Hey, something fell. Don't think I have pocket watch chain handy. Here we go. All right. This is the size of a standard pocket watch chain. It's about 13 inches long, maybe 14. And the swivel that holds the watch looks about like that. And the other end, there was any number of ways to attach it. This one has a clip that could be used to attach to a belt or even on a pocket. This particular chain is attached to my great-grandfather's pocket watch, which I should probably service. It's been 15 years since I last serviced it. And I'm going to put that one back in this drawer. Ah, good sell there, Paul. Did y'all see that big box full of moldy dolls that Rachel Strickland got in? I told her she needed to power wash them things with holy water. Man, were they creepy. One more time before we call it a night. We're going to check in on the Rolex, and we've got 12 views on it so far. I did that quick so Paul couldn't see what I had it listed for. He's going to have to go back and watch the replay to see that. Yeah, Cheryl, you're not going to. It's very difficult to find two identical pocket watch chains. They were basically consumable because they were on the outside, and they used to come on cards, a dozen of them or so at a time. They'd sell for $2 or $3, and you'd wear the chain out, throw it away, and go get another one. These days, a really nice chain is actually more rare than a really nice watch. You can find really nice pocket watches. Yeah, Paul, I know you froze it and went back and looked. But you still don't know what's important about that watch. Anyway, yeah, it's the chains were consumable. They got tore up. They got wore out. They got thrown away. So it's hard to find a really nice chain. Mine used to be, Paul, but after many years of working on watches, and I now have to wear glasses. No, it never belonged to Sly Stallone. Although some of his watches, his watch collection went up for auction over the past year or so. Yep, that's what it is, Paul. I will tell you this: that watch came from New York City. Hey, have any of you guys ever sold anything to a celebrity? I have now sold tooth items to a celebrity. Two celebrities, that is. One of them not so as big a celebrity as the other. Neither one of them huge, but let's see. I sold a tool to Dan Short, the guy that runs Phantom Works. He had the TV show about building cars called Phantom Works. And I sold a pot to Bruce Campbell. Probably wasn't actually Bruce. It was probably somebody in his household, his personal chef or something, but it was his name on the shipping label. So Roman, what did you use that Michael Jordan card for? Target practice? You know what, Cheryl? Anymore these days, I think YouTube celebrities are actually bigger than a lot of Hollywood celebrities. Brett, I know it was a fancy stock pot or something. I forget the name of it. I'm not as up on cookware as I should be as a reseller, but I saw it. It looked nice. I bought it. I listed it, and Bruce Campbell actually lives 2 towns over from me. Actually, 1 town over from me, and it went there. So I know he lives over there, and I know the name on the address was Bruce Campbell. So, oh, I mean, think about it. Look at Mr. Beast. Look how much money that kid has, and how big a celebrity he is. And I don't think he's ever been in a movie or anything. There's that guy, Gas Monkey Garage, Richard Rawlings. He's probably bigger now than he was when he was doing the TV show. Now that would be hilarious, Paul. You've now given me an idea for 2 pieces of merchandise if I ever start making merch. Yeah, I don't know if merch is on the ticket for this year. I got to deal with learning how to edit so I do more films and get monetized on YouTube. And then I've got to retire from my public job. So maybe next year. I mean, hey, Paul used to hang out with the YouTube celebrity. Went to a yard sale with her. Told everybody at the yard sale she was YouTube famous. Poor Kayla. That was hilarious. Paul, how much did you pay him? Paul, on my other computer, I started watching this morning's video, but I didn't finish it. I had to leave. So after I eat dinner tonight, I'll finish watching today's video. Well, Paul, you have a very distinctive voice. Although I can't see if they heard you before they saw you. Either way, whether they heard you first or saw you first, they knew it was you. Yeah. Paul, didn't somebody ask you if you were a wrestler one time? I'll be honest with you, Paul. It's getting harder and harder for me to watch resale content. I love hanging out with everybody, but I am getting more and more busy all the time. And quite honestly, a lot of reseller content is the same thing. It's sourcing, what sold, shipping, and what eBay has changed. So it's, hey, there's the swamp picker. Gino. No, Glenn. Dadgummit, now I'm confused again. I forgot swamp picker. Glenn. I did have it right half the time. I promise you, brother, I'm going to get it right and remember it. I'm going to write me a freaking note and hang it on the wall next to the computer. Oh, that's cool, Roman. Uh, when I watch it, it makes me anxious to get up and go source something or go list something. Then I get so anxious I can't finish the video. I get up and go to work. Although, Paul, I do say when I'm out here in the shop working, running back and forth, I will put your channel on and a couple of other people, but I'll put your channel on and have it running in the background while I'm working. And I really don't do that a lot. When I'm actually working, I try to focus on my work, and I don't do a lot of background music or anything. But when I do, yours is one of the channels that I watch or put on when I'm working. Well, I got better, but better it didn't better than my favorite. I got betters and I got favorites. You're one of my favorites. Sometimes I put that cash to trash channel on, and that one I can truly ignore. Dang, Paul, you're racking up on them. Oh, I got a little bolo for you guys. It is right there on the floor. See that 4400? That is a slide projector. Kodak 4400. The carousels and the little storage boxes for the slides, none of that crap is worth anything. Or I've never found a piece that's worth anything. But the slide projectors, they're depending on the make and model, they run anywhere from about $80 to about $120. So if you run into a slide projector and it works, get it. If the bulb is blown, leave it behind. I know because I bought one and ordered the wrong bulb twice. Each time it cost me about $18 for the bulbs. So make sure that bulb works before you buy it. A lot of times when I put the trash to cash or cash to trash, whichever way it goes on, what I'm doing is I have two screens set up on my computer. And if I walk away from the computer for more than 2 or 3 minutes, the computer goes to sleep. So I'll put the video of them on and turn the audio off while I work. And then as I need to come back and sit down to the computer and work, I don't have to wake my computer up again. Brett, in fact, I did get one that same night. But the camera that we have on the drainage pipe where they come from has been active again. So I've got another one, and I've got traps set right now. So hopefully I get rid of that problem sooner rather than later. All right, Glenn, I'm glad you stopped by, man. Come by anytime. But yeah, the one that was in here in the shop, I caught him. I have to be careful setting the traps, though, because I have little small puppies. I don't know if you guys saw them on one of my live shows where they came to visit me, but I don't want one of them getting in it because the big rat traps could easily hurt them. So I don't like setting them out in the yard where the pups can get to it. All right, folks, it's going on an hour since my dinner was ready, so it's cold now. So I think I'm going to go ahead and call it here tonight, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday. And I will work on getting us a guest for next Wednesday, and hopefully by next Wednesday, that Rolex will have sold. keep up with me on IG, Instagram, and as soon as it sells, I'll let everybody know. So good night, everybody, and we'll see you next week.